Welcome everyone, my name is Luca and this is my good friend Marco.
Hey, welcome! You are about to form a new random access memory.
And today's memory is about the future of computing. So once again, what's your take on it? What's your idea about it?
Well, as always, I start with a sort of personal experience, a sort of memory. And I was thinking just how much, before to talk about the future of computation, we should also talk about how much computation has changed in the past. And it's incredible how much it changed. Because when I was born, the number of transistor in a CPU was around 500,000 transistors, more or less. Now we are in the probably hundreds of millions. I don't even know. I don't even know the number, but I noticed something that is absolutely incredible because, and maybe you also remember, like when we were kids, the computer was perceived as something stupid, you know, like something that of course can do the calculation faster and can remember things. Like it was all memory and calculation, but it was very stupid, you know. It didn't have the possibility to interact. Like it was not something that you could relate to. It was just a brute machine, basically.
That's the commercial versions that we were able to see. If you go a little further back in the past, let's say 50s, 60s, 70s, the computer, the thing that does the computation was something that was occupying a room. It was time shared, as in you needed to book time to go there. It was made up with cards that were punched, and you would write your calculation on punched cards, allocate your time, do your calculation, wait, get your result, and then get out and use the result on punch cards. So that's the origins of computation, and I'm gonna say something about it a little later on. It's the future as well, in some sense. I'm gonna say what I'm saying about it later on.
But we save it for later. No, but yeah, my point.
It's as you were saying, it was academic first, then it became commercial. But at the beginning, it was nothing more than a cool Casio calculator with a screen and maybe some stupid games. Minefield, for example, the Immortal Minefield and this kind of stuff.
Minefield, yeah. That now it's like a flower field. I mean, now it's too more like
it's a politically correct version. It's a flower field, whatever.
Yeah. I think they changed it. It was too warmongering, you know, like a minefield. But no, my point is exactly this. Like I still remember in 1996 when Deep Blue defeated Kasparov in the game of chess, and everybody was so puzzled about Deep Blue was so smart. If we think back, it wasn't smart. It wasn't smart. I mean, it just tried all the combinations.
No, yeah, that's the funny thing. Let's talk about how it happened. Ideally, a chess master is able to. Okay, you see the chess game as a tree, which is a data structure. You know, you have branches that you can follow. You have a root, and then you have trenches that you can follow.
Yeah.
Ideally, the very good chess master is able to traverse the tree, eliminating, while it traverses, a lot of things that are not viable at the moment.
Yeah, pruning the trees. Pruning the tree.
You can go
like you cut the branches that are not interesting, and you just
you go from the top to the solution, let's say, in a very fast way, because you can eliminate a lot of unrealistic or useless movements. Whereas the PC or the calculation does brute force, as in you do all the branches at the same time, all the branches sequentially, and then you just select the one that is the correct one. But the thing is, you are so fast at traversing it that it doesn't matter if you need to skip it something. You can just brute force it. So it was not smart. It was just fast. And to be fair, if you think about the landing on the moon and you think about the phone you have in your pocket, the phone you have in your pocket is like 100 times faster calculation-wise than what was necessary to go to the moon.
Yeah. I mean, it's a brute overkill, because I think I use it in a rather stupid way now that you now that you told me this. But my point is that still in 1996, the computer was at the end of the day a brute machine. Like it was just a brute force, a brute machine. So the smart thing was actually Kasparov, which was able to confront with this brutal machine while also being able to, tie his shoes or like do other things as well. But it's incredible how like the kids who are born maybe in 2010, they have a completely different perception of the computer, because right now they have an app that put them a cat nose and cat mustache and on their face, so like the computer is sort of getting smarter. Like it's sort of like the difference between a human and a machine is getting leaner. Like when we were kids, it was obvious that the machine was just a brute calculator. Now it's ever so less obvious, like with the time going. And just to conclude, the machine is not getting smarter. I mean, at the end of the day, it still does add, subtract, multiply, divide, and branch. The point is that it does it so fast, so much faster, that like every time you hit a new order of magnitude, like the style of, like there are some visible changes. Let's put
to be fair, it only does subtraction and addition, because you can derive the other two operations using the previous two ones. Yes. I know it's
don't kill me.
It's a stupid thing, but
technicalities.
It's to emphasize how amazing it is that from two simple operation and 4 logic gates, you can create kind of amazing things. That was my point. It was not a void point, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think we completely agree on this. I mean, I think that the idea is that a stupid calculation, if you do it a number of time, a big enough number of time, it kind of create intelligence. And perhaps like if the Moore's law is not dead, which presumably it isn't, it really seems it isn't, like by the data that I gathered to do this video. But if it will go on, it's possible that we will create something that it's similar to consciousness, like sooner or later. Like,
to be honest, okay, it's the movie or series fun fact moment. In the branch of Terminator, there was a series some years ago which was called Sarah Connor Chronicles, and in this kind of branch out, it's spin-off, whatever. The way Skynet was born was out of a chess program that was able to beat a guy, and then from there it evolved and iterated through itself and get better, whatever. And that's the funny thing. But at the end of the day, the PC is getting not smarter, but it's increasing the spectrum of things it can do with, for example, machine learning or learning on itself, which at the moment is, usually give the PC an input and you expect an output, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Yes.
machine learning, you gave outputs and you want the PC to derive the pattern to transform inputs into the right outputs. It's oversimplification, but if you want to increase an image, you have an input, the PC that does the increase, and then you have the output. Whereas with machine learning, you provide a lot of images of cats, okay?
Where you already
And
say that they are cats.
You create a logic that says, find me the cats in this branch of images. You pass inputs, and the PC is looking for patterns that it learned on the previous outputs, and it's able to identify with a percentage probability, if you want to be precise, between 0 and 1, which image you are passing it by. And the more, the biggest training images or training data set you can pass are the better ones, because whereas Google and Facebook and Amazon, whatever, are good at is having a big data set, because big data set equals better patterns equals better matching, better performance. So
yes,
it's not really smart. Again, it's not really being smart as of now. It's just having enough data set and patterns to be able to differentiate between whatever you need and whatever you don't need. Cautions on itself is when presented with a problem and not enough parameters, being able to make a decision on the spot without external input. That's what cautions at the end of the day it is, right? You as a human being decide, you are driving and you see kids that are crossing the road. Your car break the wheel or something. So do you save yourself crushing the kids? Do you crush the kids because you try to steer away and you die? As in, do you kill yourself? Do you kill the kids, or you try to save both? Which one do you try to save? So that's the limited amount of parameters that you have. And this is what conscience, again, is like for me, for a lot of other people. What is the final decision for you? As in, Asimov used to say, a robot is created by humankind, so it can't go against humankind. But if you're a robot, let's say, and you are driving and you're about to crush some kids, do you steer and not kill them, maybe hurting yourself, as a human would kind of do? Or do you just, efficiently cross the guy, run them over, and continue with your task?
Well, I mean, it depends on how stupid you are. So it depends on the number of transistors that you have. At the end of the day, it's like that, Like if you put Deep Blue to drive a car, it wouldn't even think about kids, or it would just run straight into the first wall that it encounters, because it can only play chess, It's just a limited search. But for example, what we have today, like not so long ago, I saw an interview with one guy called Jim Keller, who works at Intel. And basically, it's really hard for me to understand what he says when he talks. But apparently, the big difference in the last few years is that it's not a limited search. It's still a search of a result, but it's not a limited search. It's not like all the combination in chess, which is the boundaries, the limit, and you search inside, but also the limit is shifting.
Yeah,
and basically
that's the variable thing that I was talking about. You have to be able to make a path on the tree with a limited view of what the tree is.
Exactly. And to do this, you require an incredibly higher number of transistors compared to the standard search, where you can see all the alternative and just pick one, because it's like you are in an order of magnitude of computation higher, and you can afford something that looks a little bit closer to how we work as human beings, So it's the big question is, of course, the big question today is if the Moore's law is dead or not. But this question leads to our future, So if the Moore's law is dead, we are basically stuck with the computer that we have now. But if the Moore's law is alive, what can we expect? We can expect an incredible, like a really mesmerizing future, like either with post scarcity or with killing machines, or
there is a little caveat here, I think. How do I explain what I'm thinking right now? You have two ways to improve computation as of now. Actually, three ways, but the third way is something we can talk after this one, because it's not really classic computation.
Yeah, so let's save also these for later.
Yeah,
I think the memory of our listeners.
It's a random, right? So
yeah,
you can either increase the quantity or the quality. What I mean is, you can either scale horizontally or vertically. That's what we call in in IT. So horizontally, it means you add cores, as in you increase the number of parallel computation that you can execute per second or per amount of time. Vertically, on the other hand, is increasing the speed. So you increase the single computation power per amount of time. What was done in the past was, as Moore said, was increasing the number of computation per single element in time. You were 2, 4, 6, 9, whatever. The problem with this one is you are just using and increasing one element. Scaling horizontally, on the other hand, you can have cheap computation power too, but multiplied 100 times. So per second, you have 200 operations per time. So what is being done so far is not increasing the single unit in power. As you can see in the laptop nowadays, when we were younger, the race to the gigahertz, the 1 gigahertz.
I remember that, yeah.
The coolest thing ever. Then the 2 gigahertz and whatever. I remember the Pentium 4, which was kind of a heating thing. You could heat an egg on a Pentium 4, and that was 3 gigahertz. But if you look at nowadays, let's say I recently bought a MacBook Pro, the kind of top of the line, and the CPU inside was a 6-core 12 threads, which again, threads is a way to create cores logically, as in duplicate the physical logic of a core instead of a single core, instead of multiplying the cores. So you have twice the accumulators, twice whatever logic it's in there. So those 6 cores are 2.6 gigahertz. And you would think that they don't perform well because, less is worse. It's not. Because whereas you can have a single 4 gigahertz CPU, it can do one single amount of work per unit of time. Whereas if you have 6
needs to branch,
cores, you can do 6 times, maybe less operations, but it's 6 times. So you optimize what you have.
Yeah. I mean, like to go again to dig something from the interview with Jim Keller, which I suggest I will put it in the description below. Like what he said is that we have many different strategies to increase the speed and the performance of the computer. We have many different innovation, and each innovation has a diminishing return curve. You know what it is, a diminishing return curve?
There is a point, right? There is a point.
Like sorry. No, it's like I just wanted to define a diminishing return curve, because you can call it the Mayo tube curve. So the Mayo tube, when it's
the mayonnaise tube?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it's new, it's really easy. You push a needle and you have a lot of mayo that comes out of the tube. But then the more you push, the skinnier, the tighter it becomes, and then you have to push really hard to have just a few drops of mayonnaise.
You reach a point where no matter what you do, the results you get back is order of magnitude less than what you would want to have, I guess.
Exactly. But according to this engineer, we have more and more innovations all the time, you know. So it's like all of them are dropping in terms of return. So you have to put more effort, but we have also more of them. So it's like basically he told that in their work they are very honest. So if you are an expert in one of these innovation, when you really see that your field of expertise has plateaued, you very transparently tell it and move on something else. It's like
Unless you're called
they
Intel.
have to be honest.
Unless you're called Intel, and even when you reach your plateau, you don't care and just try to sell your shit. But that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, you know what's the difference between, let's say, 50 years ago and today, innovation-wise? Actually,
No.
even 100 years ago, industrial revolution, 100 years ago now. The thing is, during the industrial revolution and 100 years ago, 50 years ago, to see an idea from mind to implementation, it could take years, decades. Nowadays, you can have an idea and have it implemented in months. That's the real, benefit of a higher computation power. You can have from sleeping one night, having an idea, to have it implemented in reality. 3 months, 4 months, you have a prototype. In, I don't know, 100 years ago, you had a lot more, and it's kind of a cheap production of ideas, because you can have a spot on instance in a cloud for a month, paying couple of 100K, whatever. You have your idea, shut it down, and then have your results, and then you can invest it and create it and iterate and go on and whatever. Which, by the way, we rely on power of calculation for another vital problem. Actually, not problem, but another vital issue nowadays. When you go to the website, your bank web home banking website.
Yes.
What do you think happens when you reach that website? Why it's called secure? Do you know why? Why is it called secure?
I hope because you cannot steal my money.
No,
can you?
Sorry, I'll rephrase it. You know how you can say that is secure, and if you enter your user and password, nobody else reads it. It's because you're using HTTPS, which is secure HTTP. To make a big story short, you use prime numbers and the fact that it's easy to multiply them, but it's not easy for a PC, obviously. It's easy to multiply prime numbers, but it's not easy to decompose them. As in, you can multiply big prime numbers, big numbers pretty easy, but from a very big number, you can't feasibly at the moment with calculation find out what are the prime numbers that compose the number. They compose it very easily. So that's more or less the reason why you are secure. And that helps me with another problem, or the third view I was talking before, otherwise we'll never see it. You know that little thing that when they tell you that a chip is 1 and 0 in the classic idea of computing, that's not true.
I know where it's going. I know where you're going now. Quantum computing.
In mathematics, you can have 1 + 1 = 2, but sometimes 1 + 1 is equal 0, depending on the logic you're using. To give you an example. So what I'm saying is 1 and 0 are states, but what happens between 1 and 0? And that's what quantum computer is. That's what a computer is. You have 1 and 0 as 2 states. You have an infinity of states between them, and your answer is the probability with the higher percentage on the ones that are between 1 and 0. So you on the quantum PC, you launch all the trees at the same time, and the one that comes up with the higher percentages of likelihood is your answer. And it can be 1, 0, or something in the between. And that's quantum computing, which means infinity between 1 and 0. A continuum of results between 1 and 0 at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you change the Boolean logic into fuzzy logic, basically. And I mean, this would be a big game breaker, I think, in cryptography. I mean, if
it could break, it would break cryptography, because HTTPS would be broken, because in 1 millisecond you would find the prime numbers. So fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, and also this idea of quantum computing also come from the fact that in the conventional computing, when you shrink the transistor too much, you reach a point where the electron just
there is no enough space for the change of polarity. Yeah, you can't traverse it fast enough. Yeah,
exactly. You're just on the other side because you do the quantum tunneling. But there is a good news, because I saw that this year, so 2020, the typical dimension, the volume that a transistor occupies is 1000 by 1000 by 1000 atoms. Okay. But that effects become really dangerous when you are at 10 times 10 times 10. So it's like we really have room for a lot of improvement. And still again, to steal from this interview with Jim Keller, he said that in all his career, the Moore's law was always 10-15 years from being dead, you know. And there is this sort of long tradition of people saying that it was dead, and they were proven wrong all the times. Like sometimes it seems dead, but then like there is a sort of big innovation that brings it back on track. And basically what he said, like, he doesn't work on the transistor itself, but he works on the computer architecture. And every year he has to bet on the Moore's law, because if he bet that the Moore's law is dead and it's not dead, he and his team will be completely overwhelmed by the number of transistors. You know,
yeah. By the way, let's recap a little for a second. You remember, I don't know if you remember the time when we were young, where there was the 386 and 486, you know, long time ago, 80s.
Yeah, 90s. Very long time.
And the first, it was 386 with the math coprocessor, which was outside, which was a funny one. A time where processors didn't need any fan, because you could put your finger and put it on the CPU while it was running. It was not hot, as you know. And
lukewarm.
You remember the PC with the turbo button that was on the PC, the turbo button that to play games.
No, I don't remember that actually.
I'll tell you that. Basically, the turbo button was a very, very badly named button, because turbo, it means go faster, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
The problem is, if you press the turbo button on those PCs, your CPU was going slower. And the reason why for this one is, early games were CPU bound, as in they were using the CPU for sounds and movement. So when the 486 was getting faster and your games were based on your CPU and the speed of
the games CPU, became faster.
Your game became faster. So you had to press the turbo button to slow down the CPU to make it playable enough.
Okay, so that was clever. So you could have a higher score, like you were superhuman.
No, it was so fast that the music was impossible to hear. It was really, really fast, and it was kind of crazy, impossible to play. And we went from that one to yesterday. I saw the Xbox Series X presentation, games presentation, and it's not a PC, so the resource is kind of less. Teraflops are less, but you were able to see real-time ray tracing with AI and graphics that was photorealistic. Real-time playing, photorealistic real-time play. You can have now games that are indistinguishable from reality at real time. So we went from slowing down a single CPU that was 3-4 megahertz, whatever, to have graphic cards that have 4,000 to 6,000 cores. Okay, they are not general purpose cores. They are vectorized cores, as in they are made to make vector calculus, which in 3D graphics it is what it is. But we went from one single core that was low and very, very easy layout to GPUs that are able to triangulate thousands and millions of pixels and images and ray of lights to be able to recreate reality in front of a likelihood of reality
in real time. Yeah, in real time.
In real time.
That's the deal. I mean, yeah, there have been, of course, also big improvement in terms of software. I mean, I assume that, of course, they don't do ray tracing. Like they have some small tricks.
They don't do real ray tracing real time. They do. They feed the graphic card firmware with a lot of models of other games, of light and illumination and positions and whatever. And when you enable the RTX, which is what it's called, they use that logic to interpolate more details into the image you're looking at and creates a virtual ray tracing that makes, explosions better, metal that are very similar to reality, extrusions, and whatever is needed. So
that's the point. I mean, because they kind of work similar to our brain. I mean, if you are sleeping and you are dreaming a waterfall, for example, this doesn't mean that your brain does a model of a waterfall, like it would be mind-boggling complex. Like what your brain does, it's just it has enough experience to present you with a convincing image of a waterfall, let's say. But if the computer is smart enough that can trick your eyes and can trick your brain, that's enough. I mean, to do more than that would be an overkill. So it would be not useful. And I think that this it's another level of abstraction, So you don't do real physics anymore, but you do another level, like you have something that interprets the physics. And yeah, I mean, it just go on with the history of.
By the way, another fun fact: graphical games nowadays can have a graphic accelerator, and in NVIDIA cards, you have a specific chips which is called physics accelerator, which takes care of all the physics of the game, as in interactions with weapons, interaction with other objects, distances, and whatever. So
smoke, liquids. All the
effects that are not light and your perception of reality, everything that deals with the visual context is a SOC, which is a system on a chip that takes care of calculating very, very fast what's in there. Also, fun fact, in your phone, actually in the iPhones as well, iPhones I know, Android I don't think so, you have a specific chip that takes care of keeping track of your movement in space. So they can better understand where you are, where your phone is, how many steps are you taking, if you're falling down the stairs. My phone, my watch is able to send a signal if it senses that I fell on the floor. It's able to automatically call for help because of accelerometer and movements and different inputs. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess mine does that as well, but I don't know about the option on the firmware, let's say.
So similar effect. Again, we live in a better world because of computation, but we are still in infancy. We are still trying to go to the shoulder of giants to see what's next, what's on their head and what they're looking at. That's my take on it.
Exactly. No, I'm very hopeful that the Moore's law is still alive, and it will be for a long, long time. And I want to close with a somewhat positive statement, is that the Moore law might be dead, but Gordon Moore himself is still alive. So He is 91 and sitting on a shitload of Intel money
We just received
right now. So it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
We wish you a happy week.
And to see you next week with a new random access memory. Stay frosty and safe.